Welcome back to NASCAR World News. If you have been watching NASCAR closely lately, you can genuinely feel it. Something fundamental is shifting inside that garage right now. And honestly, it has reached a point where ignoring it is simply not possible anymore. Because when two of the most legendary names this sport has ever produced start taking public shots at each other, you know we are living through a genuinely significant moment. What is unfolding between Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin right now is not just another minor headline buried on a sports page. This is the kind of story that actually reveals where NASCAR itself is heading as a sport. What makes this entire situation so remarkable is that Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin are not strangers by any stretch. These two men shared the same garage at Joe Gibbs Racing across multiple seasons. They were teammates. They celebrated victories together. They were central figures in one of the most dominant operations the Cup Series has witnessed in a long time. And now they are exchanging public blows. And Kyle has made it absolutely crystal clear that staying quiet about it is no longer something he is willing to do. This entire situation ignited on Monday, April 13th, when Denny Hamlin sat down to record a fresh episode of his Actions Detrimental podcast. The episode title was genuinely bold. He called it "Kyle Busch Still Has It." But if you actually sit down and listen through the complete episode, it becomes clear that Denny did not entirely believe that statement. Not completely, not with any real conviction. And that is precisely where everything began turning genuinely ugly. Hamlin got brutally transparent about where Kyle Busch actually stands at this moment in his career, and the transparency landed hard. Let us step back briefly so the full picture becomes visible, because the context here matters enormously. Kyle Busch is a two-time Cup Series champion. He carries 63 career victories. That total places him 9th on the all-time wins list. He is 40 years old, he has competed in the Cup Series across 24 seasons, and countless people still describe him as a Mount Rushmore-level talent, meaning one of the absolute greatest competitors this sport has ever seen. But 2026 has been a complete nightmare for him. Through 8 races, Busch sits 24th in the championship standings. 0 top 10 finishes, not a single one. Look at his 4 most recent results: 28th, 21st, 24th, and 25th at Bristol. His winless drought has now surpassed 100 consecutive Cup races. His most recent victory came all the way back in June of 2023 at Gateway. That's approaching 3 full years without a win. The number is genuinely staggering. And here is where the situation becomes even more uncomfortable to examine. Kyle Busch is currently in a contract year with Richard Childress Racing. He is 40 years old, and right now there is no obvious destination waiting for him if things completely collapse after this season concludes. People are floating possibilities like perhaps Hendrick Motorsports, where he originally launched his Cup career, or perhaps Spire Motorsports, but absolutely nothing is confirmed or locked in anywhere. So on his podcast, Denny Hamlin decided to voice what an enormous number of people inside the garage were already privately thinking, and he held absolutely nothing back in doing so. Clearly, RCR is not performing at a high level right now, Hamlin stated. It is time to be completely honest about what is actually happening. He suggested that Kyle simply doesn't know how to consistently extract maximum speed from the current generation car. That is an extraordinarily heavy accusation. Hamlin essentially declared that Kyle cannot solve the puzzle of the current car, and he continued pressing forward with his argument. There have been brief flashes of it, Hamlin acknowledged, and yes, he did win 3 races during his first season at RCR, but Hamlin suggested that everybody was still figuring things out at that particular point in time. So essentially, Hamlin is suggesting those early 2023 victories were somewhat fortunate. His position is that the remainder of the field eventually caught up, and Kyle simply got left behind in the process. Now, to be genuinely fair to Denny, he praised Kyle extensively throughout the episode. He described him as a Mount Rushmore caliber talent. He openly stated he couldn't hold the man's helmet when it comes to raw driving ability, so he was absolutely not calling Kyle a poor driver by any definition. But he also stated firmly that the struggles stretch considerably further back than just the RCR chapter. This situation is not new, Hamlin argued. He's been struggling for 5 full years now. We simply have to be completely honest about our realistic expectations. If you are genuinely expecting Kyle Busch to return to victory lane on any kind of regular basis, you are deceiving yourselves and setting yourself up for serious disappointment. 5 years. That timeline means Hamlin believes the decline actually began during their shared days at Joe Gibbs Racing and simply accelerated once the next generation car arrived and reshuffled everything. Then Hamlin delivered what was probably the single most painful comparison of the entire episode. He pointed directly at Kyle's teammate, Austin Dillon. If one of them is running at the back and the other is running 16th, Hamlin reasoned, then a truly elite driver should be running 8th. But that wasn't happening. In reality, Kyle sits only 7 points ahead of Austin Dillon in the current standings. That gap does not reflect what a Mount Rushmore talent is supposed to produce. and Denny understood exactly what message that comparison was sending. Hamlin also addressed RCR as an organization overall. He described them as a middling operation, not elite, but not genuinely terrible either. Not a race-winning team at their current level. They do not possess that elite pace, but they are not running at the back either. Both the driver and the team share responsibility in that reality. He concluded with a line that carried genuine sadness underneath it. He said he genuinely does not enjoy watching one of the most polarizing, popular, and talented competitors in the sport running where he currently is in the standings. Alright, that was Monday. By Saturday at Kansas Speedway, Kyle Busch had absorbed every single word of it, and he arrived at the track completely prepared to respond. Jeff Gluck from The Athletic caught up with Kyle during a media availability session. The instant the Hamlin podcast was raised as a topic, Kyle did not hesitate for even a moment. He went straight at his former teammate without any filter whatsoever. If Denny wants to swap cars, I'll swap cars with him. Any day of the week, any time at all. I would genuinely love watching him demonstrate that he can handle it better than I can. That is a direct and unambiguous challenge. Kyle is essentially saying that if he is truly the problem, then prove it by climbing into his equipment and delivering better results. Because remember the full context here. Hamlin currently sits third in the championship standings. He already secured a victory at Las Vegas this season. He collected 6 wins last season and finished runner-up in the final standings. He is operating with a genuinely fast car every single weekend. Kyle is not even remotely close to that situation. Then Gluck asked Kyle directly whether he pays attention to what people say about him across social media platforms, and Kyle delivered zero sugarcoating in his response. He acknowledged consuming some of it over time, then added that roughly 80% of those people have absolutely no idea what they are actually discussing. And then came the specific line that immediately exploded across every platform. He stated plainly that in this particular situation, he does not believe Denny Hamlin has any idea what he is actually talking about either. He can say whatever he wants about me, Kyle continued. I can certainly make his life hell in return. Make his life hell. Sit with those words for just a moment. These two competitors share the same racetrack every Sunday throughout the season. That statement sounds considerably less like casual conversation and considerably more like a direct warning shot fired across the bow. And Kyle Busch is absolutely not the type of person who throws around language like that and simply moves on without following through. So the ball shifted firmly into Denny's court, and Denny wasted no time jumping onto social media to fire his response back. Not really sure what I'm supposed to do here. I host a podcast, and I have to address questions about relevant topics that people care about. Should I simply pretend everything looks fine when it clearly does not? He described his position as walking an incredibly difficult tightrope. And that tightrope analogy is genuinely accurate. Hamlin occupies a uniquely complicated dual role as both an active competitor and a podcast host, generating weekly content. Every single time he discusses another driver publicly, then he has to climb into a race car and share asphalt with that exact same driver the following weekend. And Kyle Busch is genuinely not someone you want carrying fresh anger onto the racetrack with him. There's additional fuel feeding this particular fire as well. Just the previous Sunday at Bristol, Kyle deliberately made contact with Riley Herbst with 4 laps remaining on the clock. Herbst had mech'd him earlier in the race, and Kyle collected his retribution on track. NASCAR ultimately declined to issue a formal penalty, but the series managing director publicly confirmed he would be sitting down with Kyle for a direct conversation about the incident. So Kyle is already operating in revenge mode heading into all of this, and that specific line about making Denny's life uncomfortable does not feel remotely like empty words given everything surrounding it. Now step back and look at the complete picture, and it becomes genuinely wild to process. These two men shared a team at Joe Gibbs Racing across multiple seasons. Kyle accumulated 56 victories and 2 championships during that chapter of his career. Denny remains there today, still winning races, still competing fiercely for championships at 45 years old. Kyle departed after 2022, arrived at RCR in 2023, collected 3 early victories, and has essentially been completely stalled ever since. Kyle holds